cunt snatch streamcast thing that we got over here. We got today's show, Wild Takes, with me, Wild Fox Appears, and Ghastly Dope is our co-host today. How are you doing today, Ghastly?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing? Thank you for having me on, Fox. A wild fox appears and says, "Hey, come fucking do my show." All right, I'll do it.
Oh man, I'm doing terrible, but thanks for asking. I really appreciate you
Why
coming.
terrible? The
Well,
monkey's sick too. What the fuck's wrong with y'all? Somebody needs to mop up y'all's cunt studio or whatever the fuck it is. You got cystic fibrosis mold in the corners, mutating and shit.
yeah, I can't disagree with that. I just recently lost my job, man, so I'm gonna start chilling early.
Yeah.
Since we're at it, if you want to donate to my broke ass, go over to streamlabs.com/AW7 and go ahead and hit that up.
That's a bummer, man. What happened?
I work at a gas station / beer store, and I took 2 weeks off to go visit family down in Arkansas. And when I came back, boss just said, "Don't come back." So,
Oh, that sucks.
yeah, now I get to do this 24 hours
Oh man.
till
Wow.
something else comes better along.
Yeah, man. Just keep your eyes open. I'm sure something will come up.
Yeah, but not to complain, though. Today's show is not brought to you by MD 2020 Banana Red Wine, no.
No.
But it could be.
No. Oh my God. I haven't drank that since I was like 17 years old. Oh, it was horrible. I used to mix it with Kool-Aid and vodka and just drink pitchers of that shit when I was a kid, man. No longer. I don't want any of that shit anymore. I don't want Kool-Aid. I don't want vodka. I don't want 2020. None of that. None of it.
I like to have just one drink for a show. And it just helped me just loosen up the tongue just a little bit.
Oh, a drink is fine, but I can't do it with no clear liquors, no sweet liquors, especially the sweet stuff. Like I usually drink bourbon and Coke, and I'll get sick off the cola before I will off the bourbon. I just can't do it with the sweet stuff, man.
I feel you. So today we got Ghastly Dope, leader of Fright Supremacy, Fright for Power, All Hail Blue Whale.
Krill be under your name.
Krill be under your name. So can you tell us a little bit about the Fright Supremacy movement? Just to give us a bit of background there.
You want to just start with ghost lore? We just go right into that.
Hey, I'll let you lead on here. You've been interviewed so many times. I want to let you.
It's your show, man. You gotta fucking ask the questions that you want the answers to. You know what I mean? Fuck that. We don't even have to talk about me. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about making your interviews the best they can possibly be. Now, without a job, right? You need to fucking level up on this shit as quickly as possible.
You know, fair enough. You want to bring me to school? I'll take a lesson or two.
I would say one of the things that you want to start with when you're interviewing somebody is something recent, right? Like find whatever's going on right now. Like right now, I'm working on new art assets and like recasting and stuff to do the next crop of episodes because I'm working on 9 of them right now. And some of this you know already, but you got to remember, it's not always necessarily about what you know when you're doing the interview. You want your crowd to have it. You want it to be on your tape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though, because I know you watch a lot of Gulf City streams as well, like even if you already know that that's what's going on right now, like if you've seen on Public Works over on Gulf City Live and see how I'm working in the channel shells and shit while I'm just talking about it, that's always a good one too. You know that I'm working on this next crop of episodes. So I would say from an interviewer standpoint, you want to start it with the current. You know what I'm saying? That way you engage the people that are looking at it immediately going, yes, this is what I'm looking to know about as well. Because again, it's the current thing. Once you've got that, then you go back to the old stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do if I was you. I'm just distracting from answering the question, I guess, really is what I'm doing.
No, you're good. I was gonna bring all that up, man. You got Gold City Cartoons, you got the Fried Power Hour, you got the new show, the public what is it, Public Works?
Public Works, yep.
You've got the Whale Gang Radio. You didn't even bring up Whale Gang Radio.
No, didn't even start with that yet. I really like that on Gulf City Live right now. We're starting to just it takes time, dude. It really does. I want to be able to expand on the number of shows that are on that channel and give a wider range of programming availability there. And I think we've been able to do that. Number one, with Whale Gang Radio being an excellent tailgate party show for the Fright Power Hour, and T-Tac and Dual Wield, of course, do a fucking fantastic job. And then with Public Works, too, being able to mix what the content type is. And that's where you come into difficulty with trying to expand programming on a single YouTube channel, which is not the norm. These days, what we would think of, like, okay, if you use an analog between, excuse me, this kind of platform and television, on television, what we would think of as a show on YouTube traditionally is an entire channel, right? Like, a channel is just one fucking thing. And what we would think of as a channel on TV, where it's a bunch of shows together, is more like a small network on YouTube, kind of like what Gulf City is, right? There's 4, 5, 6 channels, whatever, and they have some different types of content. That's kind of all what one channel would be if you looked at it on TV. And the concept of the analog of a television network to what there is here, at that point, there really is no median level, unless you want to count stuff like MCNs and all that. That's kind of gone by the wayside. Then you're looking at just platform ownership. So there really is a gap there to be filled as these types of platforms become more and more and more popular. And I think that it's smart to try to position yourself for the future, where you're prepped for what entertainment consumers' consumption habits are going to be in the next few years. And I don't think it's unreasonable to look at things like YouTube channels as an expandable format, where it doesn't just necessarily have to be just the one show. It can be more representative of a larger network. And so that's what I want to try to do with Gulf City Live. But to bring it more back around to the point, it's difficult to create new shows for that, because here's what I don't want. I don't want 5 fucking clones of the Fright Power Hour where it's just a different host, but it's the same fucking show. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that format. I do that format. A lot of people do that format. And it's nothing new. You know what I mean? Fucking, it's America's Funniest Home Videos plus talk radio. That's really all that's going on there, you know? And there's lots of channels to do that show, and it's a successful format, and I like it, and I think it's entertaining, but I don't need 5 of those fucking shows on my channel representing a network that way. So it's difficult to grow it, and I like the variety that's there, but I am hoping to I've got some ideas for some other stuff, but it's hard to catalyze. You know what I mean? It's hard to have the manpower and the time. And I mean, like I said in the beginning, to answer your first question, you know, being in the middle of pre-production for a new crop of cartoon episodes, just is really taking the bulk of my time right now. And you know, I've had some casting issues in the last couple of months, so fixing that kind of stuff up too is taking some time, and that's all worked out really well. But nonetheless, there are still man hours involved in making all of those things happen. So the unfortunate part for me is just the gap between stuff. You know, I want to make sure that the live shows keep rolling. I'm able to interact with the audience and give them the current content and all that as often as possible. At the same time, you have to find a balance there with creating the core content, which of course is the cartoon. And I feel like an asshole because I ain't had a cartoon in like 3 months, man. You know what I mean? But fucking shit happens, bro. And if I'm gonna, you know, put my name on stuff, I want it to be the best I can make it. And to make it the best I can make it right now means I need that gap to increase the source quality of things like the art assets, sound assets, vocal talent, all these types of things. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if I answered any of your questions there, but that was like 10 minutes of shit.
Actually answered quite a number of questions that I was going to ask originally. So, you know, let's just keep going with
right on, man.
With what we got. So you did bring up some casting issues, and it is sad to see one of your characters leave the show. Have you got anyone to replace them, or have you considered maybe a reunion with AP maybe down the line?
Well, reunion's not going to happen, but that's okay. I have found an alternate casting for that. There's going to be some small characterization changes in just kind of what the plot line was going to be for the next several episodes. Not a complete, you know, remake, but a little bit of an overhaul to change direction on certain stuff. Obviously his primary character on the show is in a transitional point anyway that allows me to kind of leave that character where it is for a short period of time and make alternate plans in the future. And as far as the supporting roles, that casting can be replaced. It'll be a change, but shit, that's what happens sometimes. Fucking Lacey Chabert left Family Guy after the first season, and then everything got much better. So I'm really looking forward to my next run of episodes. I'm really happy with the people I've been able to bring on for cast. I'm getting really close to closing a deal on a new lead female, which I'm very excited about. And I mean, we're real close to prep. The writing is there. Most of the cast is there. A lot of the art assets are there. And I'm basically, man, I'm a dog on a leash. You know what I mean? And I'm waiting for myself, as much as anybody else. There are multiple people on the team working, of course, but, um, getting all of the assets done is such a huge job to make them worth a shit. Like, I could do them like we did in the first month or two, and that was okay. It looked okay, but they didn't do much. They didn't look very good. So, I don't know if you've maybe seen my Twitter in the last couple of days, but I've been posting a couple of the new assets, and man, it's night and day. It looks so fucking much better. Like when I look at the new stuff, composited together, it looks like a different show. It's so much goddamn better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I hate making people wait. At the same time, I'm very excited about what's coming up with it, man. It's going to be really good.
Right on. Well, can you give us just a bit of a heads up in what's coming up in the next episode? Maybe give us.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit without, I don't want to give too much away, but we certainly want to bring it back to, obviously, and if you watch Gulf City, if you're subscribed to Gulf City cartoons, you know that it's not only the Prophet and Vessel and Richard Spector plotline that was being kind of worked over in the last series of episodes. There's several questions that were left unanswered at the end of that, although that episode did close down a significant portion of what was going on in the plot. By the way, let me just take a look at chat real quick. I see several addressing me directly. I see y'all out there. What's up? Appreciate y'all coming out today, man. To talk to me in this fucking Fox guy right here. But you also want to come back to the existing plot lines, and one of the big things that we've seen so far, and really is kind of a primary source for citywide plot development, and it's going to be for a while, of course, is the mob story, the Cannoli family being in at least some degree of control of steering how things go in Gulf City. We definitely want to come back to everything that was going on with Lou and the Don, and of course them sending Johnny fucking stupid retard mouth to go meet up with Walter Mondale in order to try to close the deal on the first check from the public works contract that the Cannolis just got from Mayor EO. That's pretty fucking complicated. So I've got a lot of really great stuff set up to not only be able to further that storyline and keep that interesting and complex while still being tangible, but at the same time use that as a spring point to set off several other kind of subplot lines that'll help to develop some new characters and stuff over the course of the next few episodes. Because I got a huge cast I'm trying to get out there. It just takes time to get them all on the screen, man. We're also going to be seeing a lot more of the Crusaders in the next few episodes. The fans fucking love them. I love them. I'm their biggest fan for sure. And I've got a subplot coming up with them that I like a lot, and I think a lot of other people are going to like too. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Will they make them sausage dollars?
They're trying to get those sausage dollars.
Oh, that's great. By the way, this is an interactive show. If you guys have a question you'd like to ask Ghastly, leave it in the chat, and we'll get down to it in a few minutes.
Yeah, I see Tennessee Marine, Gold City Cartographer, Colter Krill, and Scotsman. I saw Jack T. Ripper in there. I see Loyal Logic out there. I know a bunch of these cats, man.
And Gulf City Cartographer actually has a question for you. You got a license for that city plot development?
I'm an American, son. I don't need a goddamn license. My whale-given rights protect my fucking speech.
All right. So, hey, while we're talking about the whale, all hail blue whale. Can we get Krill under your name? Can we get a bit of the lore there? Can you tell us a bit about the great Al-Hut Al-Azim?
Yeah, of course. Al-Hut Al-Azim, as you know, being the largest among what was already the largest species on Earth. We also have learned recently in the cartoon that he produces the purest red krill inside his own body. We're definitely going to be learning more about that in the very near future. But I can give you a taste of some of the stuff that's coming, and some people know already. I'm working on a whole whale history series that I've got a friend who's a history buff helping me out with, and we're kind of rewriting all of world history and telling the gospel of the whale. So there's a lot to learn there, and it's such a big process. I can't tell you when we're going to be able to do it, but it's in the works. What I will say is that the whale first came to humanity about 3000 BC, give or take. Early Egyptians, they knew about the whale back then. And the first three pharaohs in Egypt became the first ghost tribunal. They were among the first people to be fucking entangled after they learned of his wisdoms. And for thousands of years, it's been passed down. In every millennia, one of the earliest entangled people to die gets chosen by the whale as the prophet to help spread his message of peaceful ways by force, as you guys know. A couple of millennia ago, it was a guy named Jesus Christ. He ended up trying to go into business for himself. It didn't quite work out. The millennia after that, it was there was some difficulty there for choosing a prophet in the first half of the millennia. The whale ended up picking a guy named Jan Hus. Unfortunately, the Christians burned him at the stake for worshiping Ahud al-Azim in the 1400s. You can look that up. That's real than a motherfucker. And then here in our current millennia, I was chosen in 2003 after dying of a drug overdose. No one's still 100% sure why he would pick me, but I'm here to spread the message, man. That's all it is.
Right on.
I'm out to entangle humanity, my man.
You're doing a hell of a job of it too. So that was a bit of history about you and the prophets and Al Hud So can you tell us about the history of Gulf City? Can you tell us how that came to be?
Just as a show from the back end,
As a show and maybe some
lore stuff too.
some city lore as well.
Right. Well, I will say, just from kind of front end where some of the lore comes from, the topography and mapping, and a lot of the tone and elements for Gulf City are based on where I live in real life, Houston, Texas. Gulf City is not a real town. I think there actually is one in maybe Florida. There's maybe a Gulf City, Florida, or something like that. But it's based on where I live already, at least to some degree. The kind of what I'm hoping over time becomes the iconic shot of the city, you know, the green nighttime shot with the skyline and the freeway passing in front of it and all that. That's based on one of the more popular, like, picturesque views of Houston with all the skyscrapers mixed up. It's basically all that. But I started drawing, I guess, towards this universe at any rate. Started drawing with that style and started with a couple of characters when I was doing a web comic, like 2005, 6, maybe somewhere right in there, like 2006. My first characters were Ghastly and Jerome, and then Mina Harper. And they also had a friend named Lefty too, who we'll probably see on the cartoon. He's a 9-year-old with cancer, and they had to cut his hands off.
Oh no.
He had hand cancer, so he just has nubs. And you know, and so of course they treat him just terrible. But so, you know, bro, life gets in the way, and it took a long time to develop everything. So that stuff happens in stages over the years, especially because, you know, I had to work during that time too. Worked in stage production for more than a decade during a lot of this time. And so after having a few having a few original characters and kind of liking where it could go as far as how that humor could work, and bringing a darker tone to more classical physical based humor, you know what I mean? Like if somebody were to ask me now, because, you know, like when you pitch stuff to people, like, well, what show is it like? You know what I mean? They want to know what they can compare it to. And I don't think it's a completely unreasonable comparison to say that Gulf City is like half Sin City, half Looney Tunes. That's kind of about where my head is at with it. Somewhere in that range. It's like Frank Miller, Chuck Jones, kind of, if you averaged that out. It's somewhere in there. You know what I mean? excuse me, but
That's mix.
right. But early on, it wasn't necessarily a full-fledged idea for how just the premise would work on it being based around just how goddamn big the city is and how large events based on a municipality would affect characters instead of how characters affect their environment around them. It's more backwards, you know. Like in The Simpsons, it's all about how they affect their environment for the most part, at least in the earlier seasons, right? Homer has some crazy idea for a job, like fucking Mr. Plow. And so him wanting to be Mr. Plow affects the character's environment around him, makes a change, and that's where the foundation for a lot of the jokes comes from. Well, I want to go the other way and have the environment affect what the characters do. And I think that comes across just in the writing. You know, such a big catalyst for everything happened is Hurricane Harvey Keitel. And then it's, you know, the public works contract and mob control over infrastructure and utilities in the city and how all of that affects what the characters do. And I think that's an interesting way to approach storytelling. But, you know, like I say, it wasn't originally that. Earlier on, I had, I guess, what would be more simplistic ideas for what a cartoon episodic would be at that time. Like once I got up to maybe 20 characters or so, one of the things that I wanted to do for a while was make a cartoon about the day shift at a strip club. I went to a fuck. Dude, there's such a long story attached to this. I went to an Ozfest, I think, in Dallas. It's had to be like 2004, something like that. I don't know. So we went out there, and when the show was over, there was like 10, 12 fucking people in a group there. And when it was said and done, a friend of mine that was going back to Tulsa or Oklahoma City, something like that, their car had an issue or some shit, and they had a friend that was going to start driving that way to pick them up, but said, you know, can you give me a ride part of the way, kind of cut the. I said, yeah, okay. So I'll drive up to something just north of Dallas, maybe Wichita Falls. I can't remember exactly. Drop her off. Coming back. It's been such a long drive, and I'm all burnt out from the fucking day before. It's the middle of the day. I stop at a gas station. A buddy of mine's with me. I say, hey, man, where's the nearest bar? We're just in some middle of nowhere town, whatever. I said, where's the nearest bar at? I just want to stop and get a drink. I've been on the road for fucking ever. He says, okay, you go up this way, take a right, and gives me directions. Okay, fine. Go around. Pull up in the fucking parking lot. All the windows are blacked out. There's no sign on the front. And I go, oh, shit. This is probably a fucking strip joint. So we go in there. They want $3 to get in. Remember, this is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It is a strip club, of course. But the beer's cheap, and it's dark and air conditioned. We're all sunburned and tired and shit. So fuck it. Go in and sit down. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's about 4 other people in there. One of them was legit, like you would see in a fucking cartoon, the sailor on leave, where he had the white sailor suit on with the little hat and shit. I'm sure they have a name for that particular outfit they wear. I don't know what it is, but it was that, and he had 2 strippers sitting at his table. And then there was the 2 old ass motherfuckers, like could barely see, couldn't walk, but had a couple strippers at their table. So it's who you expect at the middle of the day in a strip club. And just kind of what I noticed about the day shift at a strip club is not only what a weird variety of characters you get there, but the people that work there during that time, that's a grim bunch. Let me tell you. The strippers that work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of fucking nowhere. I mean, the C-section scar is the least of your worries at that point. And I just that idea kind of rolled around in my head for a while. And like I say, there was a time where some of the characters you see in Gulf City, there's an idea, and I think I even wrote a pilot for that where it's the day shift at a strip club. In that iteration of the plot, Ghastly is just a drug dealer that hangs out at a strip club and knows the staff. He's just kind of the hookup guy there. And so there's these source drawings of like Ghastly with a long fingernail and shit. Side story to that, by the way, when we sat down, as it turns out, it was fucking $2 lap dance Tuesdays or whatever the fuck it was. So the gig was, they had all these girls in there. There were way too many fucking strippers working for the middle of the day. Way more strippers than there were dudes in there. And they had a deal where they would do the one song lap dance, you know, like they do. And then they would hold the front of the G string out and you put $1 on the left side and $1 on the right side. And then the girls would just rotate laps. So it's just constant lap dances at $2 a song, which I mean, that's the deal you can't pass up. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, my buddy had fucking shot his wad at the show yesterday. It was out of fucking cash. So by the time it rotates a couple of times, he's out of fucking money. We've had a couple of beers. It's time to get on the road, but we're, perplexed by strippers and shit. By the way, sub story to that. That day, I saw the biggest fucking titties I have ever seen in my entire life. And this girl put them in my face and they felt like volleyballs. It was horrific, man. It almost turned me off the tits entirely. They were not good. It was bad news. And she had to be 50.
Well, thank God you have made the Bavati video. So
so true.
So
true.
But,
so when my buddy runs out of money, at this point, this is when the strippers are trying to make the champagne room dance happen, right? And they're trying to charge $15. And they go up to my friend and he goes, "Oh, I'm out of money." And then he points right at me and he goes, "My friend's the one with the money." That's never something you want your buddy to say about you when you're at the fucking strip club, right? So of course the fucking strippers pile on immediately. As I recall, one of them kind of bit me in the dick through the pants a little bit. And so at this point, it kind of reminds me of how you would imagine like a fucking Middle East marketplace. It was 8 people trying to sell me the same thing at the same time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up pointing at the one girl. I say, "Okay, fuck it. I'll go one size, $15. I'll go sit back there for one song." She gets back, and it's what you expect. You know what I mean? She tries to upsell it to a prostitution deal. I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm about to drive back to Houston, and I'm just trying to fucking get a lap dance and get the hell out of here." She ain't real happy to hear that. When it comes time to pay, I pull mine out. As it turns out, I've only got $14 in cash left. And she wanted $15, so I give it a $14. She ain't happy. She leans right outside the champagne room thing and talks to whoever. She says a man's name. I assume he's the large guy that works there. So I walk right out of there real quick and walk over to my friend at the table who's finishing his beer. And I go, "It's time for us to fucking go." And fucking scoop him up. And we took off. And I most definitely have never been back to that club. So, yeah, that's how I came up with Gold City. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Well, that is some tell. That's great.
But continue on that. When it was that kind of idea for the premise, there really was only so far I could go. At that time, I wanted the show to be called Squanders. And Squanders is still one of the locations in Gulf City now. And I still have all the source drawings for everybody that works there and a bunch of busted ass strippers and shit. But
is that what you were working on with the first public works show?
Yeah, kind of. That's some stuff from that. That's at least related to. I kept a couple of familiar characters in that drawing as well, but yeah, some of that is from that time period. That's where like Cedric and Preston came from, and Tracy and Phyllis, and there's several other ones out there, but we'll get to all of them at some point. But after that, when I realized that premise could really only go so far, I just went back to creating more characters. And then I had, once I'm up to maybe 40, 50 characters, I had another idea about, they say write what you know. And I had been working in stage production for so fucking long. I thought about writing a show about a stage production company, and the gimmick would be that every episode they would go to a different show. So you would see different characters. It would be a different setting. Again, it's a way for the environment to affect the characters, not the characters to affect the environment. Right. And I thought, and I liked it, but this was also around the time that there was what was it fucking called? I think it was maybe it was just called Stagehands. I don't know. There was some show that my buddy was on. It was like some reality show about people that work in stage production. And it was okay, I guess, as far as the reality show goes. But not enough people who don't work in that industry have any fucking idea what any of that shit is. Your average civilian doesn't know nothing about fucking Edison lighting and all this kind of shit. You know what I mean? They don't know what an intelligent light versus a conventional light is. They don't have to. So I wondered if that premise was something that would be tangible to an audience. You know, when the bulk of cartoons that you see are just some average family, right? That's what Simpsons is. That's what Family Guy is. That's what, blah, blah, blah. And about 1 trillion sitcoms too. So again, I have some characters from that idea that are prep, but I just didn't see how it was sustainable to work from that premise. And at that point, I've got a couple different premises and I've got all these different characters and they kind of exist in the same universe. And I started thinking about it on a larger scale. And that's when it kind of started coming together in my head. And this is maybe 2010 at this point, 2011. It started coming together in my head as more the current iteration for what the product is now. And at that point, you know, I'm over 50 characters and I've got an idea for a way to create a foundation to tell stories from. And the kicker for me was it was around that time I came up with because man, especially in those more research heavy years, I was big on just binge watching all these fucking cartoons, good or bad, you know, lots of different stuff. And one of the things that I liked when I was a kid, and I still like to a degree now, was a lot of the stuff that Warner Brothers did in the 90s, which is like Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, Freakazoid. They had a ton of shows. But what I liked about those shows, and Nickelodeon shows during that time were somewhat that way. Cartoon Network show, that was when they were first, well, it was maybe after that, they were first doing cartoon. That's Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd and Eddy, all of those shows.
All the good ones, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those are good shows. Really, I think Powerpuff was underrated. It's good animation and it's smart ideas for premises based on a really cutesy show. Like, it's not my favorite or anything, but I recognize that it's a quality show, you know. But some of those Warner Brothers shows during that time, what they would do instead of trying to tell, because in a 30-minute TV show, that's 22 minutes of programming, 8 minutes of commercials, at least currently. That varies a little bit over the years, but that's the basics. So in a 22-minute show, telling a single storyline can become really tedious with animation unless you have big budget. For instance, there are some that did really well, and even those would split them into parts, like Doug or Rocko's Modern Life. But even shows that told a multi-part story would often split it up with other things. Ren and Stimpy was big on doing that. They'd have part one of a story, then you'd see some small sketches, and then they'd have part two of the story. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was such a cool idea for a show, and especially with me essentially, you know, fucking praying to Looney Tunes most of my life. That short format just really sticks out to me. So I thought it'd be really cool to do this more modern premise for animation and for a foundation for storytelling. And again, this brings it back to the Sin City meets Looney Tunes thing where those Frank Miller movies are cut up into segments. Well, what if there was because you don't see that format very much anymore. Your modern stuff, South Park, Simpsons, Family Guy, Venture Brothers, all these things, they're all 22-minute, just flat out one fucking story episodes. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not necessarily what I wanted to do, at least at that time. And then you have your 11-minute shows, like Aqua Teen, and I love Aqua Teen, don't get me wrong, but how much story can you tell in 11 minutes? And that's what I'm doing right now is 11-minute format, and it's tough. You pack a lot of stuff in, and it goes really fast. But I thought it'd be really cool to do a 22-minute program that was a multi-segment show that way. Like maybe have two segments that are 6 minutes apiece that are telling a bulk story. So there you essentially have an 11 to 12-minute episode. And then having smaller, instead of just doing sketches with the same characters, well, fuck, I've got a whole city to work with. What if we saw those same city events from the point of view of completely other casts of characters during that same program? So you wouldn't just see how maybe Ghastly and Mina and Sherry and like the haunted house crew, how they deal with it, or necessarily how the mob deals with it. Well, what about the strip club crew? How are they dealing with it? What about the fuck, you know what I mean? All these different things. And I thought that was such a cool format. So at that point, I just fucking busted a nut all over character design. And I got it to over 100. And it just started getting really ridiculous and bulky. And I started getting kind of fucking serial killer-ish with it, where I had the big map up on my wall and like characters pinned to the wall and strings and shit. Oh, this guy works here and knows this guy and blah, blah, blah. And it just got to be such a complex, big fucking mess of shit that it almost became kind of fictionally alive in a way. And I started to realize that if you could make that foundation rich enough, the story would just, or the city would just tell me the stories. Then I would just tell you what happens next from all these people's point of view, and the stories would already be there. And when I'm too old to fucking do it, anybody could write Gulf City. You know what I mean? Once all that foundation is out there, then it's ready for anybody to do it. Kind of like Guar. But
we're talking quantum entanglement now.
Quantum entanglement, man. Entanglement over the generations. Yeah, at that point, then, I kind of tried to trim down on characters and focus on specific sets. And that was when I first tried to animate. At this point, I was using like Toon Boom, that kind of shit. And it just, fuck, man, the labor intensity on that is still just fucking insane. And I tried to work on that for a while, but man, I just could not get it at any kind of manageable speed, particularly being essentially a one-man team during that time. So I just kind of continued working on character and story development, got to a point where I had an opportunity to get a lot of my original characters ink and paint set up. So I got about 40 or 50 of them in color finally after all of that time. And then I started kind of just writing stories and rearranging stuff and coming up with all these kind of subplot devices of how these people's interpersonal relationships affect the environment around them and things that could happen in the city, like events that you could base an entire series of a TV show on. Like, what if a meteor hit Gulf City? That's a whole season, bro. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, all right. That's wow. Damn. That's a lot to process in a short amount of time.
It is. Yeah, I know I'm being kind of rapid fire here. And you have to remember this stuff all, unfortunately, the hard part about it is it all had to get parsed out over all these years, because I couldn't just, there was no point where I could just dive in and do 6 months of nothing but fucking Gulf City. Because, man, who could afford to do that? I'd have to have like a trust fund or something set up so I could make some. I had to work, man. And just in 2017, finally, and it all kind of, the timings kind of came into place. It was right when I was really starting to want to push again to be able to animate again, because really I was having a lot of ideas for stories and all these things. And just right about that time, Adobe Character Animator came along, and I got to talking with Dave Werner, and just, man, it was a really good fit because I'm such an Adobe junkie already. Fucking love Premiere, Photoshop, After Effects, all that stuff. So it was easy for me to pick up Character Animator and just fucking, then I went, all right, so who's my easiest character to animate? Well, let's use Ghastly. He's a ghost. That's pretty easy. He's just a big white blob, basically. And it makes it easy because I had always kind of written him in a way where you always write a character as yourself to make it easy, right? Like Seth MacFarlane is Brian the dog, and Matt Groening is Bart, and you know what I mean, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Trey Parker and Matt Stone are Kyle and Stan, et cetera. And I had always kind of thought to write Ghastly in my voice. I said, well, I'm the asset I have available to do that. And so, okay, I'll animate the ghost. I'll be the ghost. And I'll dump my ass out on YouTube. You know what I mean? Because that's my available platform that doesn't cost money to start on. And so then I go, okay, why would a ghost want to be on YouTube? And I'm looking around, kind of what seems like is popular at that time, all these things, and what appears to be one of the big things on there, of course, is politics. This was during an election year. I guess this was 16, not 17, excuse me. So I said, okay, if a ghost was to get into politics, what would he care about? And I celebrated South American culture, and I broke out a fucking yellow spiral, and I wrote like 6 or 8 fucking pages of just Fried Supremacy, of what Fried Supremacy is. And the All Hail Blue Whale thing has been just an old joke from years back. And I said, all right, well, let me take that and actually make it. It never was, it was never connected to anything at any point. It was just some shit we all said to each other for a while when we were younger. And so, okay, well, let me connect that to something and create this whole, and that's where, and I looked up all the Egyptian translations and shit, and that's where Al-Hud al-Azim became connected to ghosts and the entanglement of humanity, and Fried Supremacy being the fake political movement that represents the fake religion, that represents the fake town, that, and you just stack it up in such a way. And you try to make sure, one of the important things for me, especially in the very beginning, and again, that's why my preparation time is always so long, is you do the research to get the details right. If there's things that aren't perfect, things aren't perfect, but snagging those little details, that's what really can reach people, because when you do the basics and the basics looks good, but you're not detail oriented, you're going to reach people on a mediocre level where they go, oh yeah, okay, that's all right. When you go specific, when you go detail oriented, yes, you will alienate a few, sure, but the people that you reach with those details, it's getting them on a whole nother level. You know what I mean? Like, to be able to reach that appropriate reformation to religion level with everything that we're able to do here, just really, is able to reach people on a level where, obviously I'm not trying to lead a cult here, but you know what I mean? It gets them on a level that still is that same kind of social consciousness that you would expect out of a religion without the guilt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You get to spread your message and not, be
right. And the whole point, especially with white supremacy, and this certainly is how I write a lot of my jokes for the cartoon and stuff, but especially with white supremacy, a big part of it is geared to be hypocritical in that everything that white supremacy hates is exactly what it is. You know what I mean? It's exactly what it is. Like all of this distancing itself from political affiliation while being a political affiliation, just attacking all worldwide religions while representing a religion, teach our peaceful ways by force, all of that stuff. It's all built to be kind of, the joke isn't necessarily the ghost. The joke is what society necessitates the creation of a ghost like that, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. I mean, I can see all the kinds of parallels with the alt-right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, I get it. I get it. That's great. And I'm not ignoring the chat. Loyal Logic, you asked what Ghastly's influence was growing up and what you do to get inspiration from currently. I suggest you go listen back to the past half hour or so.
I would say my biggest stuff as a kid, at least animation influence, is obviously Looney Tunes. Anything Chuck Jones did. So that's not just Looney Tunes. That's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He did about a decade of Tom and Jerry. Fucking a ton of stuff. A ton of stuff. Not just him, and some of the other big animators during the 40s and 50s. Bob Clampett does a lot of great work. Tex Avery, I think, is great with the he was the big takes. That's Tex Avery is Red Hot Riding Hood. So the wolf, where his jaw drops and his eyes bug out, and all those big takes like that. That's all Tex Avery shit. And he was outstanding as well. And Ralph Boschke, to a degree, as well. That's a very different kind of style than what I do. There's a lot of rotoscope there, obviously, and all of those kind of things. But tonally, that made sense to me as a kid. Even stuff like heavy metal. That's one thing. I know that's not directly a Boschke project. You know what I mean? But even like Fritz the Cat, that kind of stuff. That Fritz the Cat, I think, was influential on me as a kid because it portrayed how a city changes over time, even though it's centered around one character. Something about how they were able to create a really rich environment for the city that Fritz lives in. There's lots of background characters, lots of things happening. It's very detail oriented. And so that really reached me even at a young age. I would say being older as an adult, my more modern influences for animation, I think Venture Brothers is one of the better cartoons running right now. Not only in animation, but in writing as well. I also love that so many modern shows are taking on this kind of season at a time arcing plot line setup. You know what I mean? I don't want to make Cheers, where you could watch any episode of Cheers and it doesn't matter, because it's just they're all just a single contained plot line. There's nothing wrong with that. No, I'm sure I'll write those here and there, but I like having the big progressive plot line that can go a long way and take your characters a long way. There's nothing wrong with doing Family Guy, but I don't want to make Family Guy. You know what I mean? That is not my show.
How about that Star Trek though?
Word.
Most of that self-contained. I'm just saying, I gotta have an appreciation for.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great shows that are like that. Just you can't squeeze and that was another lesson I've learned in all this. You can't squeeze every fucking thing you like into a single show. You
Oh,
just can't do it.
certainly.
You just can't do it. So, and don't I only use Cheers as an example because I fucking love Cheers, man.
Speaking of cheers, take a drink.
Hey, I like it. I need to get another drink. Actually, I'm out of drink.
All right. Well, before you go, let me let you ruminate on this here. We got one more question from Gulf City Cartographer, and he asks,
Okay.
he can imagine you being someone who has many different ideas and directions your art and storytelling could go. How do you decide on what ideas and directions to go for are the best?
If you laugh while you're writing it, it's funny. That's a good rule of thumb for me. Like if as you're typing it out, you're going, oh shit, that's okay. That's how you know it's good. And honestly, it's hard to pick. In a lot of ways, I write cartoon plot lines not so dissimilar from how I would write wrestling or how you would write a soap opera. You know, there's ways to carry multiple plots at once. There's ways to have a big enough cast to not have to utilize every single person every single time. There's ways to build storylines that maybe not are the thing that you want to do most right now, but leave you open to be able to do not only this other thing you want to do, but set you up to be able to do that again in the future. So a big part of where the plot line slows down for me right now is there's so much prep. There's just so much prep. There's so many characters and settings and all of this to introduce and to get people used to. And I'm trying to parse it out over time and keep some, kind of straight up plot lines going on. But at the same time, you want to be able to reach outside the box, kind of branch out some.
Well, I'm getting excited to see what Lou is up to in the next episode.
Lou's gonna be a fairly prominent character in some of the upcoming episodes, and I love Jumpsuit Lou. He was one of my earlier characters too. He was from between the webcomic and the strip club days, so like maybe 07, something like that was when I first started drawing him, something like that.
Right on. So this is actually the first time I'm hearing about the webcomic, but I know you've had some other projects.
Oh, those records are sealed, my friend.
Yeah, I know you've had some projects before though that didn't quite survive the YouTubes. You had the KNN and the Deadline.
That's correct. Deadline, I stopped it for a long time, and then I kind of reworked it, and I've done a couple, and I'll probably do some more. I like it. I'm doing it a little bit more like Alex Jones now. Like it's even the graphics are rip off of InfoWars, like just these shorter segments. But I was doing like a 30-minute show with it, where it was more like 60 minutes or whatever.
You're still them truths though.
Yeah, that's true. I had to drop them truths, man. So, and that's why I don't want to let it go. As far as Kanan goes, that was certainly my the weakest end of my animation. That was my first animation thing to do on YouTube. I didn't write that show. That was all brainchild of my former partner John, and I animated that show and edited it and stuff. So certainly had a big hand in making that. But that was kind of in a lot of ways for me in trying to facilitate what he wanted to do at that time with just fake news show, basically. It was a good dry run for me to kind of test where my limitations were going to be early on with just that animation format and that platform and using that software set, et cetera, et cetera. So it was good from that angle, being able to, we're able to find some people that are still with us now. That's great. We're able to, kind of practice up on just how this platform works, on how YouTube works, and some of the kind of secondary platforms that come along with it. And it was a good production dry run for me before starting off with the first couple of cartoons, because those got complex in a hurry for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, man, that was fucking a year and a half ago.
Wow. Yeah, it's been a while. I haven't been following you quite that long. I only just discovered you earlier this year, but it's been a wild ride so far.
We're only just getting started. What's crazy to me, and I wish there was a way to express it to more people, or maybe they recognize it more than I think. Like people that have seen this year and a half, to them, that's the whole of what Gulf City is, the beginning and up to current. But for me, this is just like chapter 5 of what, you know what I mean? Like this is just the continued growth of an ongoing journey. So as far as I'm concerned, this last um year and a half, give or take, is just been one more step, man. So it's time to move on to that. What's great about this and the upcoming steps is that now there's, a few thousand folks with us, and that's fucking great, man. So I'm certainly very appreciative of the people that anybody that watches Gulf City, but especially those guys that have been around a long fucking time. Um, you know, that and I see Tennessee in the chat says, can't get rid of me. I say, yeah, don't I know it, brother. No, I love Tennessee, man. Another good guy. One of the guys that's been, and a lot of the guys have been in the chat. Fucking Jack T. Rippers and Alamo, and those guys have been around for fucking ever. But in my mind, it's kind of, this is just the beginning of Act 2. YouTube is just Act 2. And we'll go through this for a few years till we get it set up, and then Act 3 will be wherever I'm able to end up with this goddamn thing. So I think it's been crazy fucking 10 years, give or take, getting it to this point. But bro, that's what it takes too. You know what I mean? And that's always something I've kind of tried to keep in the back of my head, man. If you want to do something big and crazy and just something like being able to come out of nowhere with a fucking animated series. Like, think about when we were kids, how completely impossible that was. There was no way I was ever going to be able to afford fucking a Korean animation team or whatever, animation production was just gigantic and expensive, and there was so little likelihood that your average guy could make that happen. And just with that availability being there now, fucking, it's time to take those steps. And so I'm trying to take them as quick as I can. Alamo and Jackie River both questioning where Jerome is. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out, man. We're gonna find out. Jerome ain't gone forever. I'm telling you. There's gonna be some big news. Chuck Reardon says, would you ever consider a Gulf City comic? I would consider it, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure which picture. I'm not gonna draw it right now. I've got way too much. Like, if I had an animation team, like if all I had to do was write Gulf City, right, and just do my performance part, then I would maybe consider a comic. For the time being, there's no way I have the work output capacity to make that happen. Not that I wouldn't love to draw a comic. That'd be great. Because you can draw so much more complex with stills. With animation, you have to keep everything's very rigid and specific, and all these different layers that have to work in a very specific way, and blah, blah, blah. With stills, you're just drawing the one thing. It's crazy to me now to look back at that, spending my early life drawing and still going, fuck, it's just the one goddamn image. It doesn't matter if you go to a new layer when you draw the head. It doesn't matter if you go to a new layer. All these different things. It just seems so much easier now. So I'd be down for it. But unfortunately, probably not anytime soon.
Right on. Well, still, it does sound like an idea for the future.
That's right.
In Gulf City.
But bro, that's what it takes, man. It's what it takes. You've got to be able to have those ideas and be able to shelf them and live with yourself and know that you have to progress to get to a point where you can execute. You know what I mean? Dude, how long did this shit sit in my fucking sketchbook before I was finally, it was years before I was even able to get it to color, let alone get it to move. So you just have to keep it in mind. And I think that's a good message for anybody trying to come up in any kind of media creation, is that, man, everybody want to be balling overnight. It doesn't fucking work like that. You want to do something big, it takes time. You've got to fucking be willing to put that goddamn time in.
Fair enough, man. Yeah, you can't make a movie in one day. Someone made one in 2. I can't remember what movie that was right off the top.
That's right. It can be done. Yeah, I know what you mean. But even if they made it in 2, what was the writing time? What was the post-production time? What was the promotion time? All that didn't happen in 2 days.
Right. So is there anything else that you'd like to do before we get off here? It's just a little bit past the hour here. We're coming up to the hour mark on a show.
I would say remember that fried supremacy is the right supremacy, and make sure you subscribe to Gulf City Cartoons and check out Gulf City Live Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Right on. Okay, this has been Wild Takes, where I just grab one cunt and just kind of feel around for an hour, see where that goes. Okay, and this has been Ghastly Dope. This is a show on the cunt stream slash snatchcast, whatever it is now. Great stream. Thanks, Loyal Logic. Appreciate you guys
Thank you,
coming
Bob.
out.
Yeah, appreciate you having me out, man.
And I appreciate you for coming out, Ghastly. You are
For
one of
sure.
my favorite streamers right now, so
Well, thank you,
it's
man.
been an honor.
Thank you. I appreciate that, sir.
All right. I'm going to close this out now with the song. Schmeckle! You still awake? All right. This'll wake him up. I've been in love with love and the idea of something binding us together. You know that love is strong enough. I've seen the time tell tales about that systematic drug. Yeah, that heart that beats is one. It's collectively unconsciously composed. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I lost my head in San Francisco, waiting for the fog to roll out. But I found it in a raincoat, it was smiling down. You feel the love, I feel the love. Come on, let's start it up. Let it pour out of your soul. Well, I've been in love with love and my idea of something binding us together. You know that love is strong enough. I've seen the time tell tales about that systematic drug. Yeah, that heart that beats as one is collectively unconsciously composed. You feel the love, I feel the love. Come on, let's start it up. Let it pour out of your soul. You feel the love, I feel the love. Come on, let's start it up. Let it pour out of your soul. Do, 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 do.